Thank you for tuning in to Hacks and Hobbies with your host, Jonaed. In Season 2 of Hacks and Hobbies, we're visited by our amazing guests coming from all walks of life. We want to learn their story, their struggles, and their journey on how they got to where they are today. So stick around. In this episode, I get to speak with Jonaed Iqbal. He's a founder of NoDegree.com, the No Degree podcast. He is a career strategist and helps folks like you and me build better resumes and come up with better interviews. He's a speaker and he is the originator of the LinkedIn Insomnia live show on LinkedIn, and he caught my attention through one of his lives, and I was like, dude, a man after my own name, I need to connect with this dude and get in touch and see what he's doing, because it was just so exciting to see somebody with my own name and like going out there and making changes, making waves and making the world a better place. And I connected with him, and I'm honored to bring him on to the episode. Thank you so much, Jonaed, to come onto the podcast and be a guest.
I'm super excited for this. And I remember when you messaged me, he's like, hey, what do I got to do? I was like, you got the same name as me. So the answer is yes.
Yeah, dude. So that was a really cool start. I mean, we were going back and forth on messaging there, and then we finally got on the call and we just connected on a totally different level, because I think the mindset comes from absorbing content and absorbing, motivation from other people. And I think we both had similar upbringings and being in the States and being in that role. So it was really cool that we connected on the same level. It was really fascinating. I just keep repeating myself. Why you keep repeating yourself? All right. So tonight, tell us a story about your journey. Like, how did you get started in this area? From your experience, you've done a lot of cool things, and you've been a speaker and you've been the president of the Toastmasters. I mean, lots of cool, awesome things you've done over the years. So how did you get started? What brought you here?
So the NoDegree.com, I was doing a lot of research, and it was a Reddit thread that was the tipping point, where someone asked, for those of you without a college degree who make over six figures, what do you do and how'd you get the job? And these were jobs you don't think about. Hey, like I repair elevators. Hey, I operate a crane. Hey, I do this random thing for a hospital. I'm a claims adjuster. And it was like, how'd you get the job? My friend, my uncle, my cousin. And I was like, why can't I be the friend, the uncle, the cousin? And fortunately, NoDegree.com, I put in my email.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect much. And a few days later, they came back with a price of $1,800. And I was like, oh, and I was in college.
Yeah.
So I had like 600, whatever. So I think I called two of my buddies. Yeah, I called like 3-4 of my buddies. And then one didn't answer. Other one wasn't as interested. Two of them were like ready. And then we're like, all right, let's buy it. And then my other one of my buddies was like, look, we can actually get it for lower. They're a domain reseller. Let's negotiate. And we got it for like $1,433.
There you go.
And, at first it was just a bunch of guys in the basement. And over time, we just grew it, figured out what we're going to do. And I think, especially in the last 3 years, we made a lot of progress.
Mm-hmm.
Last 3-4 years. And the last 2 years, we really figured everything out. And then this, like the last 7 months, it's just been tremendous growth. I've really refined my positioning. I've really understood a lot of things. I have it's just all been execution.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Like you said, it took you 3 years to really grow it or really understand the inner workings of how does an engine work. That's your research and development phases, yeah. Right? And now you've got the refined product that everybody can use and everybody can benefit from. So that's really cool. And that's what I've been discovering about myself and my journey. It's like, okay, you've got to get out there more often than not.
Yeah.
And to at least fail, because if you don't fail, like they say, if you don't have 300 bad stories or 300 bad articles or 100 bad articles, you're not going to have a good article because you didn't put in the time.
So, that goes back to, I'm going to share a public speaking fail.
Yeah.
So that's why I got into public speaking. That's why I got into Toastmasters. When someone came in and presented Toastmasters, like coincidentally, it was within the next week. I was like, yes, I got to do it. So we had a project, and it was, you had to either do a recording of yourself or whatever. So I had this idea. I was like, oh, I'm going to use my friend's TV and I'm going to be in front of it. That's going to be my PowerPoint. I'm going to record it. It just had to be 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I'm a student, and I start at like 10 p.m. And I told my friends, I was like, yo, just help me out. You guys do the recording and help me. And I was like, look, it'll only be like 30 minutes, an hour. Dude, I messed up so much, and I was reading off a script. Like, I just kept on saying the wrong thing. And, this was no edit. So if we had video editing, we would have chopped it up. But, dude, it took me like 8 hours. It was like from 10 p.m. I finished at like 5 p.m. And then it took like an hour to like render the video and upload it. Dude, they still laugh about it to this day. They're like, yo, remember you said 20 minutes? And, I had, good friends, but it was just funny. Like, it was like, yo, what is up? And then from there, I was like, look, I need to work on this. I wasn't too shy, but I wasn't as refined in my public speaking. And then Toastmasters came along, and we started. I was the first president of the club. Now, look, I ran unopposed. So I'm not going to be like I ran against 10 people. I ran unopposed. And I used that to sort of grow, because we were a growing club. And the fact is, students don't care about public speaking. So it was hard in the beginning to grow. And now it's the second largest club in North America. But the first like 3 years, if I like didn't show up, the club would have died, because there were times I did like 4 or 5 roles in a meeting. I gave speeches because all the speakers dropped and we needed a speaker. So I just gave a speech that I had somewhat figured out, but I wasn't like ready. But sometimes you just have to be ready, right? Things happen and you just have to show up.
Exactly. No, that's really cool. That's really inspiring. And, like you said, it takes 10 hours to figure out your first speech.
Yeah.
And that's very accurate, because yesterday I was teaching this class on video editing and video production. And somebody was like, I just don't know what to say in the video. And the whole topic is around, you gotta figure out what your story is before you even start talking.
Yeah.
You gotta have the script down and then practice, 10, 15 times. So that's memorized. So then you can put your own authentic self in it when you're telling the story. And as I'm talking to other people after the thing, they're like, dude, it seems like you've got it figured out. I'm like, it just seems like it. I don't have it figured out, because I'm still figuring it out. But I'm a little further ahead. I'm on the third exit from, when you're on the freeway. Like, you're like, 10 minutes ahead of me. So you've got that part figured out. I'm like, yeah, but I'm still not at my destination.
Yeah. And what you said is so accurate, because a lot of people, I have the LinkedIn live show, and a lot of people say, oh, you're such a natural on camera and stuff. And then, or you're so natural in conversation. And I say, yeah, because I've been in the Toastmasters for 5 years. I've been actively talking to people when I have conversations. I really try to break it down. So that's when I got the opportunity to start the live show. That's why I'm a natural. If you did it to me 5 years ago, it would not be the same. It's just like, or even 10 years ago, even a few years ago. So a lot of times, in order for someone to be natural, it's not natural. You have to practice and all that stuff, right?
Absolutely. Because like, even for me, when my first interview, I remember we did a videotaping of it, and it felt so weird because we didn't have a cameraman, and it was like, oh, is it rolling? And then it was like, okay, how do I get this thing started? I don't have my notes. I don't have anything. We just started talking. And then after doing over 100 interviews, I kind of got the rhythm of it. I'm like, okay, this is how you start a conversation. This is how you end it. And of course, I had some Toastmasters training. I never finished the whole thing. I was like, okay, I did icebreakers and whatnot. And I think since then they've changed how their model works too, right?
Yeah. they have different paths and stuff. But I mean,
Mhm.
ultimately, it's still a similar, like,
Yeah,
still overall, they had a lot of flexibility in things, right? Because you weren't limited by
exactly.
topic. So yeah,
Right.
they changed things, but essentially it's the same.
It's the same thing. But yeah, the key and in all of it is you got to be doing it. You
Yeah,
got to keep doing it.
yeah,
Like,
because yeah, it's one of those things like you can't just sit back and watch other people speak,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Look, in the beginning you can to
Hmm.
observe and learn, but at some point you have to do.
You have to get up.
There's no replacement for that.
Yeah. And one thing that I always think about, hey, the reason why every single human being on Earth walks is because they didn't give up.
Yeah,
Otherwise, everybody be crawling. Like, you know what?
yeah,
You're not gonna tell your child, dude, you tried walking, it's not working for you. Just crawl.
yeah. No, it's like it takes time
It takes time. Yep.
for
It takes
anything.
time. Anything exactly. So even to start your own business, it definitely helps when you have help, when you
Yeah,
have people around you that can be like, hey, you're doing this wrong. Let's change this up. When you have mentors, when you have coaches. And I think it's really important to have those people in your life or be part of a mastermind group or be part of something or some community that some people, a little bit ahead of you so you can watch them and mimic and do what they're doing and refine your own story. I think what we were looking for is a blueprint
yeah,
or instruction set. Because I
yeah.
think, yeah, go ahead.
No, so yeah, I think that's why a lot of people like want a blueprint.
Yeah.
But the fact is like what you really need is like a general guide,
Yes.
and then like think it's you don't. I would compare it to like a house, right? To build a house, you need like a finished blueprint. You need all the details. You need all the dimensions. You just know where
Mm-hmm.
everything be. The fact is, for life, it's not like that because the thing
No,
is, it's like you're building a house, but oh, I want to change this, I want to change that, or I learned this is better. But for
mm,
a house, it's you can't do
you got
that.
to have
So
that. Yeah.
I tell people it's like to have a general guide, but you gotta adapt it to your own self
Yeah.
because you see these articles online that do extremely well. It's like, oh, 5 secrets to this, or
Yeah.
5 tips to increase your business. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like those don't really work, right? And or they may not work for
They may
you.
not for you because you don't, and
Yeah,
that's a really good point because I look at those things and I'm like, oh, these 5 points are really great and I can drive the traffic, but where am I driving the traffic to? Do I have a
yeah,
website to show? If I
yeah,
don't have that piece, and if I don't have a
yeah,
funnel or if I don't have a place that they can get value immediately from it, then sure, you're driving traffic to a dead end.
yeah,
And like you said earlier about having a blueprint or house blueprint, I'd look at it as a Lego problem.
yeah,
You have 1,000 pieces of Lego, and you're asked to build something. If you don't have the instructions, it's going to be really hard.
yeah,
But as soon as you have the instructions, you can build a crazy looking Porsche car, right? Or you
yeah,
can build, excavators. You can build anything if you have the right instructions. Like it took me about 20 hours to build the playset for my kids.
yeah.
And it's got the 2 slides, it's got a twirly slide,
Oh,
it's got the swings. But I looked at my time like 20 hours and I'm done with this. Sure, there's heavy pieces, but I would not have been able to do it if I did not have the instructions, if I
yeah,
didn't have the labeled screws. Like every
yeah,
screw is in a little small baggie. You just
yeah,
says,
yeah,
okay, this is SW9, it's
yeah,
SW10. And eventually I figured out, okay, for this one, I just need this one and I can just look at the screw and know which one it is. But then if I didn't have that initial instructions, I wouldn't be able to do.
yeah,
And I think a lot of the times what people say is figure out what your end game is. And that's why people say, okay, what's your goal for the next 3 years? What's your goal for the next 5 years? What's the goal for your next 6 months? And if you can figure out those goals, and then you can then lay out all the steps
yeah.
of how to get
And
that point.
super important. I would also tell people it's okay to sort of change direction and
Oh, yeah,
pivot. Right? That's just a part of life.
it is.
It's
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the career you're in was probably not what you thought you were going to be at 15 or
Mm-hmm.
18. It's just
I
life
wanted to
changing
be a
thing.
pilot.
Yeah, and it's just like life happens. Sometimes you're like, okay, you know what? It doesn't. I don't have the resources for this, or I'm not as interested in this, or things happen in life. So I tell people just, but regardless, no matter what you do, just focus on moving forward, because I'm pretty sure that knowledge that you learned is transferable to another area.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one of the most important things is being able to express yourself.
Yeah.
And like conversation wise, people say, you know, oh, how do you start talking like this online? And what's funny is that these same people, you could talk on the phone and they will talk about their stories because it's a private conversation. You feel more open to talk about the things. But as soon as you're like, oh, put a camera in front of it, like, no, I don't want to share that.
Yeah. No, it's tough. But I tell people, look, if you're not comfortable sharing in front of a camera for a long period of time, do it for like 30 seconds. Do it for a minute. And then you'll see that it's not as hard. The first time for a lot of things is the hardest.
Yes. So on the podcast, you know, I like to focus on journeys, and you told us your journey and how you got started. You know, the tipping point was, you know, you were going through this thread and people like, how are you making 6-figure without any degree? And then you thought of the nodegree.com and you got that built out. And now you've got that No Degree podcast coming out pretty soon.
It came out.
That's right.
5 episodes.
Five episodes.
Yeah.
And by the time this episode is out, you'll have at least, you know, 15 or 25 or 30 episodes out.
Yeah, you're right. I will.
You know, and so what are some of your and you did talk about, but what are some of your motivations for on your day-to-day? You know, what are you doing on a daily basis to advance forward and move forward to the next step, or what's your next level for 2020?
So before I answer that, I just want to go back and I want to say, so even though I started No Degree a while ago, it was essentially a hobby. It was something I was working on the side. Mm-hmm. So I had a full-time job and all that, but I was doing the research on the side and I was working. Yeah. So I just want to be clear about that to people in the audience, that it wasn't just 5, right?
Yeah.
Obviously things would have been faster, but look, I had to save up, make money, support.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So now what was can you repeat the question? You said, what were the daily going forward, right?
What are some things that you do daily and what are you doing going forward?
So daily, the thing is daily, it's like my days are all over the place, right? Some days it's like, oh, I'm recording a pod. Some days I'm recording 2-3 podcasts, being on a podcast, doing a live show. Other days, I always try to have days where I have a more open schedule, where I can sort of check email, do research, catch up on these things. Yeah. Just because it's always good to have some free time, because I've had instances where people they said, hey, my guest dropped out of my LinkedIn live show. Can you be a guest? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I was supposed to do some email, but I'll do that later. So it's always good to have, like, I tell people, don't have every day as a super busy day where you have obligations that require other people. Exactly. Have days, maybe 1 to 3 days a week where you do that, but have other days which are more flexible, because sometimes things happen last minute, or sometimes someone tells you, oh, hey, there's this event tonight and it's a big event. Oh, I have an extra ticket. You want to come? So just make sure I'm going to focus on the podcast and the LinkedIn live show, because I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from that. Mm-hmm. And the reason I like the podcast is because, like you said, creating content. I like writing LinkedIn comments. I like writing posts, answering messages. What I don't like is writing blog posts. Mm-hmm. That's not me. For some reason, like, I'm not bad at it, but I'm not the best at it.
It's not you yet.
Yeah. No, I don't think it'll ever be me. But you know why? Only because it's like, for me to write, it's like I want to sit down and I have my setup and I want to type and not have anything to worry about.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, I genuinely, and I don't enjoy that process, but I enjoy podcasts.
Yeah.
I enjoy speaking. I enjoy the live show. So to me, it's like, look, I'd rather do a podcast episode than a blog post. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, I can pay someone to write a blog post. I can say, hey, here's what I'm looking for. You're a good writer. I'll pay you. You can't really pay someone to do your podcast.
No, you can't
pay someone to do your live show. So for me, the higher ROI activity is the podcast, is the live show. And the fact is, for personal branding wise, that's better for personal branding. So for me, but I tell other people, you gotta figure out what you're good at, what you like doing, and then see how you can incorporate into your business. Because the fact is, as small businesses, entrepreneurs, you can't do everything. And it's much better to avoid burnout, to focus on the things that energize you and the
Exactly.
things that are not draining. Because the one issue I have is I'll have a long day and I'm not getting tired at night
Yeah.
because I'm not doing anything that's super draining.
Yeah, exactly.
So, right, that's a problem I have.
No, you've got really good points. You've got to do something that you absolutely love and enjoy. And when you talk about blogging as an activity that you have to sit down and write, it is true. But since you're already podcasting, you can convert those
Yeah.
podcast episodes into blog posts as well. So that's something that you can look
Yeah,
at. I mean,
I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna pay someone to do it. Like I don't wanna like so dude, even like the show notes, like writing the summaries,
yeah,
it's like, dude, I
can
don't want to
somebody
write the
do it?
summary. Can someone do it? Like that's like
Yeah.
not like I have no problem talking to someone about it, but
Hmm.
for me to like write it, it's like
Well, that's why I try to, what in the beginning of each episode, I'm like, all right, I need to get a good 3-4 lines because then I can grab that and use that as my podcast description.
yeah,
So I try to do that so that way I save my time in the future.
yeah.
Talking about saving time, the one thing that always makes me laugh is when Seinfeld, he talks about, oh, I'm saving time, I'm too dizzy. Like, what happens to all that saved time? Do you get it at the end of
Yeah.
end of your
You
life?
gotta use it for something.
Exactly. So that's pretty funny. Man,
So question, you know what? I'll go into one of my hobbies.
do it. Yeah.
So
So that was so let me get to those part. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I think we should do that. So what is one hobby? So I asked questions towards the end. What is one
Yeah.
hobby that you wish you got into?
So one hobby so programming, that's one thing that, look, I understand the basics of coding.
Mm-hmm.
Someone can walk me through code. I understand how you have to think, right? The logical steps of how,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and I get that, but I wish I got into it just because, especially now, automating things, certain processes, and I know, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could program. Thankfully, my business partners are pretty technical,
There you go.
but that's something, like I enjoy it. It's thinking, it's trying to break things down, and
Mm-hmm.
the beauty of it is there's so many ways to code something.
Oh my God. Yeah. Coding or programming is one of the most creative talents in the world.
It
And
is.
people don't look at that because they say, oh, that's science. Look, science requires creativity.
Yeah.
No two coders or programmers will write the same program to get to the next point. And the reason I say that it is the most creative thing is because my brother-in-law, he's a programmer for the past 20 plus years. And he is a creative as well. He can draw Batman without looking at anything from his mind.
Wow.
So he's been doing these drawings of anything and everything, and he could draw people. I'm like, holy smokes, dude, that's pretty awesome. It's because as a programmer, you have to think in so many different layers and levels that it's just crazy. And I try to get into programming earlier in my life, and I was like, I can't do it because I am not a creative. Even though I am a designer, I can design interfaces all day because I am using analytical features and using numbers and whatnot. So even though I do a creative job, I'm more analytical than anything else.
I see. I tend to be a mix of the analytical and creative.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say one of my biggest strengths is strategy.
Yeah.
But a lot of strategy, there's a huge analytical component. It's really breaking things down. And then it's being creative. Like I have this set of data.
Yeah.
And now it's like, how can I be creative? How can I apply it to something that I don't have a set of data for? Use some assumptions, and how can I succeed in these areas or work
exactly.
best?
No, that's really cool. So yeah, programming has been really exciting for me. I took a whole bunch of classes on how to program iOS devices and iOS and whatnot. So pretty exciting stuff. What is your favorite movie or TV show?
That's tough.
If none, how about a book?
No. So I can answer it, but I'm a big fan of the Marvel movies.
Mm.
I've always loved the comic book cartoons. Like I'll still watch all the comic book cartoons.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's changed for me in the sense that when I was younger, you kind of look at these, it's like, wow, Magneto, he's so evil and blah, blah, blah. But then as you grow up and then the writing obviously gets a lot, the writing for movies is different from cartoons. Cartoons are sort of meant for kids. But then you start seeing the motivations, and it's kind of like you sympathize to a certain extent with like, oh, this is why they are the way they are.
Exactly.
And right. So I really like the Marvel movies. I mean, my favorite one, I like the Hulk. So Hulk and like Captain America, those are like one of my two favorites.
They've got some really dense stories. And
yeah,
if you actually look at Thanos and his story, right? They've built him as somebody that you are totally sympathizing with.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, dude, why do I have these feelings for Thanos? He's doing something in such a way, but it's really nicely done. And it comes down to writing and how to, act that out. So that's cool.
Yeah. So that's sort of my favorite book. So I like books that teach you a lot. But let me see. I have a mix. You know what? I really like the 1984, right, by George Orwell.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things you read and it's such a ridiculous concept in the sense that, wow, that could never happen to us. But it's like you kind of just see like, governments around the world. It's like, wow, it's happening. And then, so that's that type of book. The other book I would say is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It's a book on negotiation because I think it's always super good to understand negotiation because people always negotiate in different aspects of life. And then if you can identify like, hey, why are they negotiating? What are they trying to pull on me? Especially like since I'm in a career related space, a lot of people, it's like, look, if you were able to negotiate a little more, you would be in a much better position.
Yeah, absolutely. And that does make a lot of sense. I'll have to check out that book, Never Split the Difference.
Yeah.
All right.
He was the number one FBI like hostage negotiator. So he goes into it's
got the stuff. He's got the backing for it.
Yeah.
Tying into that to the last question about favorite movie, what movie would you choose if you got to play a character in it?
Oh, this is good. If I got to play a character, let me see. I don't know. Maybe I'd love to be like the Hulk. You'd be the CI. Yeah, you'd be like the CGI and all that stuff. And
I think I should change.
Yeah, you should change.
Go ahead. I should change the question to be like, if you got to play the protagonist.
Yeah.
Protagonist, right?
So I like him just because he's a very deep character. I think his background, a lot of people in the movies, they don't go in as much, but it comes from like, he was abused as a child and all this stuff.
That's true. Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
That's what it like comes from. Like his dad used to abuse him and he had that thing and it just like kind of, and even then it's just like he has this uncontrollable rage and it's like a symbolism of just like that you hold it in and it's very deep. So I like those type of, I'm always angry, right?
So right into that, who is your favorite superhero?
It'd have to be the Hulk because he's the superhero. But I love Captain America, he is, a true American in terms of ideals, in terms of how he thinks, and sometimes you think, and it's like, what would Captain America do? Like like that guy is always making the right decision. Right. And
it's the Marvel's version of Superman.
Yeah, but without
the flying powers
I just feel like it's right, but I feel like you're right. I think I would say Marvel, but he doesn't have the same powers.
No, he doesn't. Right? But as a character, as a human being, with the morals,
So I like him. And one interesting thing is when Chris Evans was chosen to be Captain America, they knew he should have been Captain America because at first he was like, I don't know if I'm right for the character because this character is this ideal, and a true Captain America would think like
exactly.
So it's
it was just like boom. No, he played really good Fantastic Four. The Human Torch too.
Yeah.
That's where we remember him from.
Yeah.
All right. If you were a board game, what would it be?
Board game. Let me see. Monopoly is like what I play, but let me see. You know what? I think whatever the Battleship, right? Because that's a board game type version, right?
Yeah.
I think I'd be that, just because you're thinking, you're strategizing, and there are better ways, and you don't have all the data, but you pick and choose, and you slowly figure out. So I think I'd be like the Battleship.
Nice. One thing that I've been wanting to do is I've got so many guests that have answered the same question.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna build a little spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Or kind of like a visualization, like
the most. The most.
These people are Monopoly people. Yeah. These are the Batman people. These are Superman.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool to see that. Yeah. All right. Last question. Where can my audience find you?
I'm pretty accessible on LinkedIn. So if you search up Jonaed, you'll find me. I'm the only one with my spelling. There are a couple of people with your spellings, but my spelling is a
lot of me.
And so mine is straight, linkedin.com/in/Jonaed straight. Yeah, so I have that URL. By the time this episode come out, Jonaed.com is going to be finished.
Nice.
So that's my speaking page. But yeah, the nodegree.com, the No Degree podcast. And I'm pretty responsive on LinkedIn. And
nice.
I'll have conversations, messages, just be respectful. A lot of people, what ends up happening is they ask for a lot. And it's like, look, as much as I would like to talk to each one for an hour, it's just but like I said, I will point people in the right direction. I'll say, hey, you know what? You're looking for this. Listen to this episode of my podcast. Listen to this. Because a lot of the episodes I'm going to have focus around career advice, like how to start a job on the right foot. My third episode is how to prepare for an interview, just because a lot of people ask me that. So I just turned it into a podcast.
That's awesome. And I think I had a conversation earlier about, I think it was Lila Smith who said, when people are asking for your free hour, how do you deal with that? And I was like, if you are creating content as a content creator, you can point them to a direction, and you're doing exactly that. You're like, oh, I need help with, how to blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, listen to this episode. You've got this content creator already. You can totally point and have a reference point. And it's pretty cool. Cool, man. Well, this was awesome talking with you. And we'll definitely stay connected. This was really fun.
Yeah. And then I'll have you on my podcast.
Yeah. Because I got no degrees either.
Yeah, cool. My favorite type of person.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode on Hacks and Hobbies. We absolutely appreciate your contribution. You can find additional notes on hacksandhobbies.com. Please share the podcast with your friends and tell them what you learned about our guest today.